Job is an older man who once prospered and remained faithful. He lost children, wealth, and his health, and he sits in ashes questioning why innocent people suffer. His grief is deep, and his voice is raw. God appears not as a human, but as a voice and light in a whirlwind. He is the sovereign creator who addresses Job directly to answer questions about suffering, justice, and his order of creation. As the last echoes of his friends fade, a whirlwind rises above Job's tent. Thunder shakes the plain and Job feels the air change. He lifts his face, expecting only more counsel from men, but he is about to hear the voice of God himself. In that very moment God speaks. Who is this that darkens counsel with words without knowledge? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? The question cuts through Job's complaints, not to shame, but to widen his view beyond human suffering to the vastness of divine wisdom. As the voice continues, God asks about the sea's doors, morning's measurements, the storehouses of snow, the birth of the stars. Each question reminds Job that the Creator governs mysteries beyond human control. The account is not a science lecture but a claim. God sustains what we cannot. As the catalogue of creation unfolds, Job stands silent. His sharp replies to friends seem small now. He realizes his questions lack the scale to question the Almighty. Humility presses into his chest, and he begins to see his suffering against the backdrop of God's order. In the next suite, God asks about taming the sea monster and binding the chains of Leviathan. These are poetic images of chaos and evil. God implies that he alone judges and confines forces that threaten the world, a sovereignty beyond human hands or courtrooms. When the voice falls silent, Job replies, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose is hidden from you. He tears his robe and repents in dust, not because God demanded punishment, but because he sees his limits and trusts the justice of the one who made all things. But before restoration, God addresses Job's friends. He rebukes them for speaking falsely about divine justice and instructs them to offer sacrifice. This clears the moral air. Suffering is not always punishment, and hasty theology from friends can wound further. As God commands, Job intercedes for his friends. He offers sacrifice on their behalf and praise. This act shows Job's character. Even in suffering, he chooses mercy over vengeance, and his intercession becomes the bridge to reconciliation with God. When the rites are done, the heavens quiet, and a calm replaces the whirlwind. The voice of God recedes, and the first light of restoration touches the camp. The silence itself testifies that the argument is over, and a new chapter can begin. As the days pass, Job's fortunes are restored. God blesses him with twice as much as before, new flocks, children, and long life. The restoration is both material and relational, showing that God's justice can reconcile loss without erasing the memory of suffering. In that renewed season, Job's family returns, and new children are born. He receives 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he sees his household flourish once more. The family scenes show restoration is deeply personal, weaving new life into the fabric of what was broken. Years later, Job dies old and full of days. His story ends not by erasing pain, but by showing God's redeeming hand across time. The blessing over his latter years confirms that God notices and responds to faithful endurance. When morning comes, we understand why God came in a whirlwind, not to answer every why with explanation, but to remind finite creatures of his vast governance. The speech centers trust, not formulas. It invites humility and worship amid unanswered sorrow. As the narrative closes, God corrects the simplistic theologies of Job's friends, who claimed suffering equals punishment. The text teaches that divine justice is complex, sometimes inscrutable, and that faithful endurance and humility are proper responses when human wisdom fails. In that renewed fellowship, Job experiences restoration that heals relationships and hope more than it answers every question. The story shows that God chooses to be present with his people, and presence sometimes matters more than explanation. When the book ends, Job's witness remains: faithful perseverance, honest lament, and final restoration. The story does not give a simple formula for suffering, but it does insist that God hears, responds, and restores in his way and time. The passage teaches that God answers not by solving every mystery, but by revealing his sovereignty and calling us to humility, faith, and intercession. Job is restored materially and relationally, confirming God's compassionate justice. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you do not miss the next one.